Hi everyone, meteorologist Matt Gray here, and we have got a little explanatory video for you because we've been seeing a lot of thunderstorms around the inland northwest this spring, as we've seen lots of active weather patterns. And so that brings me to a little bit of a deeper dive into a question that seems very obvious at the start, but the process behind it is actually a little bit more complex and a little more fascinating. Why do storms usually form in the afternoon? Well, the short answer is, right, it gets hot in the afternoon and then the air rises and then the thunderstorms form. But like I said, that whole process, a little more interesting, a little more complicated than you would think. So let's go through this. Let's get through the basics here first. So in the daytime, the sun heats up the earth. We see lots of warming during the course of the day. Warm air, the warm parcels of air, they rise, they cool as they ascend, and then that moisture that's contained within them reaches a certain level where the humidity reaches 100%, and then you start to see those clouds begin to form. Now, what's interesting is that the severity of whether they're just regular old clouds, whether they become tall, big thunderstorms, a lot of that is about how vigorously that warm air is going to rise, how quickly it rises. And the faster usually that the air is rising up into forming clouds, well, usually the worse that your thunderstorm is going to be. And that's where meteorologists use what we call skew-T charts or sounding charts to give us a vertical profile of the atmosphere, or in many cases simulate a vertical profile of the atmosphere that will give us a good idea of just how strong those little storms that are popping up on our little forecast models are going to be. So let's show you these charts. I know there's a lot to take in, but we'll explain it for you. So this chart is from the northeastern tip of Oregon, and I'm recording this video on the afternoon of May 26th. And so we are expecting a chance for some severe weather to develop in this area and then track into southeastern Washington and north central Idaho. But this area is where things are going to be basically where these storms are going to first pop off and then begin to track to the north and east. And yes, there is at least a small chance that some of these storms could become severe. And so this is a vertical profile of the atmosphere just as these storms are expected to get going. So this is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon on this model simulation. And what I wanted to show you here is basically where we're looking at unstable air, which means that air from the ground is going to rise up, and also stable air layers where that air rising up from the ground is going to meet some resistance. In fact, it may even sink back down because the air surrounding it, once again, in theory, is warmer than the air that is rising up. And so when you have that usually means that air is not going up anymore. You need that strong rising air to get the high clouds, to get the severe thunderstorms. The taller a storm is, the nastier it is going to be. And so you need that strong updraft for these storms to become really big and bad and scary and have lots of lightning and all those other sorts of things. So you have the red line, which is your temperature, the green line here on the chart, which is your moisture content, and then the purple line. And the purple line is basically simulating, all right, let's take some air from the ground, let's rise it up through the atmosphere, and how does that go? And so what do we see? Well, we see areas where we have more warmth, more energy from that air that's rising than the surrounding atmosphere around it. And you'll also see areas where we have stability, where the air, where the atmosphere around that rising air, that's a little bit cooler. And so that's what we call in the weather world, what we call CAPE, convective available potential energy, and what we call SIN, which is the opposite side of it, CIN. And these are two opposites basically. So you have convective inhibition, SIN, you have convective available potential energy, CAPE. And so these numbers, basically, the higher the number is, the higher the CAPE number is, the more unstable air there is, the stronger your storm is likely to be. On the opposite side, the higher that your stability number, your SIN number is, the more that it's going to put a lid on rising air in the atmosphere, and it's going to put a lid on thunderstorm development. Now, here's the thing, and this is where we get to the important part about why we see these storms why we see a lot of thunderstorms usually pop up in the afternoon. The reason why is because as the ground gets hotter and hotter during the day, you're usually able to overcome any stable layers of atmosphere higher above you that, at least when you're getting up in the morning especially, are usually a whole lot warmer than what's going on down at the ground. Because remember, the ground cools down quite a bit more, and thus the temperature right above it more than the air just a couple thousand feet up. Especially here in the mountains, where you can have pretty warm, stable layers of air coming from heat off of the mountains high above your head and then drifting over those valleys and creating a layer of stable air. In fact, inversions in the winter are a perfect example of this, where a lot of our valleys get sucked in with fog and there's really no rising air that can get above that. We really have to warm up, and we have to warm up in a big way for things, for that cloud layer to get busted through by that rising air. And so this happens in the same way when we're talking about thunderstorm formation. So the warmer it gets in the afternoon, the more likely it is we are going to see those clouds begin to grow in height, and more air is going to be rising much quicker through the atmosphere, and that is what is going to create those thunderstorms. And so in this particular simulated sounding or vertical profile of the atmosphere, you can see that we have those CAPE values, which are in the 1400 range, and you have those SIN values that are not very high and only the double digits. So you put those two together, you smash those two together, and you can see that there's a lot more energy to be had, and that's one reason why, particularly on Thursday the 26th, we're going to be looking for thunderstorm development as we warm up through the day in southeastern Oregon, and why during the evening, especially when we have a cold front coming through, which will also provide some upward motion as cooler air lifts up some warmer air as it comes in. That's also going to kick off thunderstorm formation. And both of those things together, with a lot of available energy higher up in the atmosphere, that means that we could have some pretty strong thunderstorms right around that Washington, Idaho, Oregon kind of a triple border line. So what will actually happen remains to be seen, but we are pretty confident we're going to see some thunderstorm activity. And these are one of the ways that we tell and can forecast thunderstorms days in advance and make sure that people know that some nasty weather is on the way. So if you enjoyed this little explanation, go ahead and like the 4 News Now YouTube page, subscribe to the Brainstorm newsletter. We put out information like this twice a week, where we delve into the science behind the weather. We show you some cool weather stories from around the country, and we talk a lot about the deeper insights, I guess, into our local weather. So like, subscribe, and have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll be back here with another Brainstorm video on Sunday. Have a good one.